So in 1998, I was at one of those critical life junctures. I didn't know what I was going to do with my future. Now, I didn't have a bad life. I was the first one in my family to go to college. I finished with 2 degrees. I was actually working at a job that matched my degrees. I was buying a house and a little triplex, and I figured out that I really liked the care and feeding of properties, and I had really interesting tenants. But it wasn't enough. And I had very serious questions about what was I going to do with my future? Who am I? What's my purpose? Is this all there is? So I went with some friends to northern Scotland in a Finhorn community. It's a spiritual community. They've been around about 50 years now. They have over 300 people who live there. And they live in sustainable communities. And they're a world teaching center that shows other people how to do that and how to live in peace with each other. To say I was affected is an understatement. I was inspired. I was transformed. I wanted to live in a community of like-minded people. So when I got home, I realized I needed 2 things. I needed more apartments, and I needed to find those like-minded people. Over the next couple years, I sold my house and my triplex. I found a 4-plex and a 9-plex. They're pretty close to each other. And I set about the rehab. I manage all my rehabs and my repairs. The 4-plex was in pretty good shape. The 9-plex was rough, but it had good bones, and I was inspired to bring out the inner beauty. I was really lucky that I found good contractors who could see what I wanted. What I wanted was a sanctuary where when you entered through the entrance, you could leave that craziness outside. You could come in and feel like you were being restored, even if it was just a rental. So over the years, I also was lucky to find really good residents. And in the early years, I noticed that my places tended to attract women who were coming out of domestic violence. They had the unfortunate histories that, they shared that, but they also had very clear visions of what they were going to create in their future. They all had jobs, but while they stayed at my places, they'd get a better job, they'd go to college, maybe go back and get an advanced degree. Some of them started businesses. And I noticed that it was a safe haven, but it was also a launching pad. After a few years, they'd usually move on to either buy a house or rent a bigger house. And I noticed when there were vacancies that there was always a sister or a cousin or a friend that would fill that vacancy. I had one woman who moved into the apartment when her daughter moved out. So I had these ideas about how to rehab. I really love creating pergolas and walkways and gathering places. I am emotionally attached to my properties, I admit that. I am bonded to every single plant. Every tree and vine and bush has its place in the overall plan. And after that, then the recession hit. And then I noticed that my demographic changed. I didn't have as many women. Had more single men, more couples. I had a single dad. They all came in and made these places their homes. They looked out for each other. They were kind of waiting out the recession. They were hoping they didn't lose their jobs. But I noticed more and more that tenants were having trouble paying their rent. Some of them had to have their utilities turned off. I talked with churches and nonprofits, and they said after food, that money for utilities was one of the major things people came in to ask for. So I'd been reading some stories about people who were making affordable communities where economic refugees could get the support they need to get out of that mess. So a couple years ago, I talked with each of my residents and I said, what do you think about me trying to make these more sustainable so that it's more affordable for you? And they liked that idea, so we did the main things of, sealing up ductwork and sealing up registers, and we weatherized the doors and the windows. And it made a difference on their utility bills, and I was inspired, I was encouraged. And I had the idea of making an urban food forest. I just think that's a great image. Does that conjure up all kinds of ideas? And so I talked with the residents about that. They kind of didn't know what I was talking about. But I went ahead and hired a landscape designer who really loves doing sustainable landscapes. And she came up with these wonderful plans. And we were going to put outdoor washers and outdoor showers. And the water was going to flow down to all the citrus trees and the plants. She knew how to move dirt to make the basins and the swales, to keep the rainwater on the property. She knew where to put the water harvesting for the rainwater. But there was only one problem. Apparently, I had planted everything in the wrong place. And she wanted to rip everything out and start over. And I was a little stunned because, remember, I'm emotionally attached to my properties. I know where all those plants belong, and they have their place in the big picture. So I only agreed to let her go over and mark everything with orange tape, everything she wanted to rip out. And the next day I walked over there and walked through the entrance, and a couple of my residents were kind of standing on the walkways, and a couple of them were sitting in the courtyard. And I went in and sat down, and I kind of let out a deep sigh, and we were just all looking at all that orange tape. And finally, one of my residents said, "You know, Diana, we really like living here. We like what you've done. You've got so many fruit trees, so many plants. We don't want to take showers outside. We like the laundromat next door. And you know what? You've already got a grapefruit tree, an orange tree, a lemon tree, a lime tree, a plum tree, a pomegranate tree." So my heart and my brain and my breathing kind of returned to normal. And we talked about what they would be interested in doing. So we ended up putting in 9 rainwater harvesting tubs. We got them in last year before those great rains we had. We're talking about putting an aquaponic garden in because it's really low use on the water. It's pretty easy to learn. The truth is that everybody's working a full-time job, so it's important to find time-efficient ways to add in the sustainability idea. Over at the fourplex, I hadn't really done a lot of work over there. So I had room to do more plants, and I thought that'd be a great place to add in more food plants. So I figured out this nonprofit puzzle. I called up a watershed management group, and I had them design the exterior area, where those basins and swales should go, where the plants should be planted. And then I called up Iskashita, and I said, "Hey, what kind of crops would you like to harvest maybe sometime in the future?" And I took that list, and I went over to Desert Survivors Plant Nursery, and I bought desert plants and native adapted plants. And then I hired Primavera Works to do the work. And it's almost a year later. We've still got about 80% of the plants. They're doing really well. A couple of them have even produced food and fruit. But what's cool is to watch how the tenants really like it there. They really watch over the plants. They use the rainwater harvesting tub to water the plants. They use the water that comes from the laundry room out to the plants, and they've started growing their own container veggie gardens. I've got one couple that's on their 3rd garden in a year, and they get so excited when I come over there. So all the while, I've been looking for like-minded people. And I found them in classes and sessions and meetings, and we had great conversations about great ideas. But it took longer to find the people who were doing the work to manifest their ideas. They were the ones in the nonprofits and those small businesses. They were the ones doing things that could complement what I was doing. And I kind of realized that I had already found people who got my vision. All those contractors, some of them are still with me, who helped create the places the way I wanted them to be. All the different residents who'd figured out that they wanted to live there and had meals together and supported each other and applauded each other. And I realized that what I wasn't really looking for like-minded. I was really looking for like-hearted people, because passion comes from the heart. Passion is what gets you up every single day. Passion is what pushes and pulls you forward through that endless list of things to do and turns it into an endless list of possibilities. Without passion, an idea is just a thought. It's just a conversation. And I realized, I had this little epiphany, that I love doing this work. I will continue doing this work because this is where my heart lives. This is where I get to express my passion. And you know, since that's happened, all kinds of like-hearted people are showing up. And they want to work with me on the next stages of what's going to happen. There's exciting stuff about how to create affordable, sustainable, permanent rental homes that help people create the future that they want. So that's another story. I won't get into that now. But for now, I just want to say that my heart thanks all of you like-hearted people who are here tonight. Thank you.